Let's face it, mainstream music today can feel a bit overwhelming. Sure, people can have their own preferences, and it's great that we have so much choice when it comes to what you can listen to, what's coming out, what variety there is. But at a certain point, everything starts to become fuzzy and feel kind of repetitive or saturated, as if there was like a factory just pumping out all these songs every single week, hoping to land on these Spotify charts, and then disappearing for the rest of their lives. Even if people work hard to put everything they have into their songs, sometimes the sheer competitiveness and volume of the industry, more often than not, makes it seem like nothing fresh is coming along. Even if there are people who, I'm sure they are, who are pouring their hearts out trying to release something that truly defines themselves. And this has been the case for the majority of the past decade. However, looking back into music in the 21st century, there was a certain type of music genre music, I'm not sure, that has certainly left its mark as one of the most intriguing and weird elements of modern pop culture. And this was Vocaloid, the computer-generated vocal synthesizer. And today I'm going to talk to you about why they matter. The year was 1961. The Soviet Union just sent a man to space for the first time, the Cold War was in full force, and most importantly, the WWF was founded, and now they're a top contributor to saving the environment. Protect planet Earth, guys, let's go! But while all this was happening, a small group of physicists at Bell Laboratories were experimenting and messing around with the latest IBM supercomputer. And after a bunch of jargon programming by a bunch of nerds, somehow managed to be the first to program a computer to sing on its own. And now that's been referenced in 2001: Space Odyssey, and then it's going to be referenced soon in the Vocaloid thing. This doesn't really matter, let's just skip ahead. The year is now 1997. Whoa, we skipped ahead 3 decades. The powerhouse company Yamaha teamed up with the music technology group of Pompeu Fabra Universidad de Barcelona, España. Oh, como estas mis amigos españoles? The two groups worked together in a huge research collaboration project that ultimately resulted in the creation of many vocal synthesizer technologies, which then led to the creation of the first Vocaloid, which was codenamed Daisy, which was a reference to the 1961 Bell Laboratories thing, and then which that was unveiled in Music Mess of 2003. This is a whole mess, but it sort of circles around, as you can probably see. And now the first version of Vocaloid has been released in 2004. From there, they released more and more versions of Vocaloid, and yeah, that's basically all there is. Except not really. Let's talk about why they are so popular. And the main catalyst for the popularity of Vocaloid was none other than Hatsune Miku. Vocaloids, upon initial release, were marketed as a backing or supporting vocals for professional use, something that could contribute occasionally in the EDM or disco scene. However, a Japanese media company by the name Krypton Future Media, remember that name, its importance, thought that there was potential for the software to be used by a wider audience. Consequently, they developed a voice bank for a character named Hatsune Miku, and then marketed it in an anime-like way, just making an anime avatar to appeal to a Japanese internet culture. And it kind of worked. Hatsune Miku garnered the most success in terms of sales, considering the other Vocaloid voice banks weren't doing so well. But what really kickstarted the rise of Vocaloids was Nico Nico, the Japanese equivalent of YouTube. A user named Automania uploaded a cover of a finished song using Hatsune Miku vocals, with an animation of Hatsune Miku swinging a leek. And knowing the absurdity of internet culture, this blew up. It garnered massive popularity and resulted in a community of amateur but passionate musicians who created Vocaloid-centered content such as skits, songs, covers, and animations, because Krypton Future Media, our boy, they made this software called Miku Miku Dance, where you can just make Miku dance. And other Vocaloids as well, but they're marketing as Miku because Hatsune Miku is the more important one. So sorry guys. Noticing the potential success of Vocaloids, and in particular Hatsune Miku, Vocaloid-centered rhythm games were created, like Project Diva predominantly, and also concert and events were starting to come up, particularly Miku Expo, which was a concert consisting of mainly Vocaloid holographic performances, where they used a bunch of hologram technology stuff. I'm not a technology dude. Naturally, as the popularity of Hatsune Miku grew closer to mainstream, companies and businesses did what they always do when they see an up-and-coming trend. They see this thing and think, let's make some money out of this. And so they use it to market everything they have. From Pocky in the fridge to the Toyota Corolla, Hatsune Miku's car apparently, to, hey everyone, this is Scott, president of Domino's Pizza. Where they try and sell you a freaking Miku's on top of the pizza. And when you're eating, she just sings a song about military and imperials. Vocaloids reached global fame in the early 2010s as this further progressed. Scarlett Johansson was giving Miku advice on hair. Lady Gaga declared Miku as her favorite digital pop star. Eventually, the commercialization of Hatsune Miku got to a point where it was kind of absurd, where the Vocaloids were considered a group of omnipotent idols by many. There were people just trying to pay their life savings to marry a hologram Hatsune Miku. That's a real thing. That's a real thing. There's this Japanese guy on this SCMP article where he was interviewed on Hatsune Miku and stuff. I'll link it down in the description below. And journalists were freaking out about how this was the future of all music. And more and more companies were looking at this and think, let's make some money out of this. But this was never the point of Vocaloids. And a big part of why they saw a stagnation, or even a decline, some would say, after 2015. You see, the obvious reason as to why Vocaloids garnered a huge following in the first place was because it was never seen before. But more so than that was that a majority of Vocaloid songs were created by basically everyday people, and there were non-professional musicians on the internet who just basically needed it as a resource to create their songs. Not everyone can afford an XLR microphone or these sweet amps or these Nord piano keyboards or this Pro Tools or Logic Pro or any of that stuff. No, we just need anime. And we see Vocaloid and it looks like anime and we think, oh, this is worth my money. Since these songs were released by everyday people, we get to listen into a perspective that a majority of us can relate to and connect with. Whereas mainstream music, not that you can't connect with mainstream music, it can feel a bit more out of reach in terms of what they're conveying, especially considering the time pressure that most mainstream artists have to release the next album. Since if mainstream artists don't consistently pump out these albums, the record labels are going to get sick of them. They might, there's a lot of factors that go into it. I'm not going to discuss those here. There wasn't that sort of pressure with these amateur artists, which resulted in more songs that they could be more satisfied with. However, as Vocaloids garnered global attention, the people who are creating these Vocaloid original songs started to also feel this sort of nagging pressure to constantly release something, which is why the volume of songs being produced also started to decline and people switched to making covers and skits, which were way easier to make, they required less creative effort, and they were still appealing to those who were into Vocaloids. This leads us to today, where Vocaloids are seen as this sort of niche, this sort of fad. With that in mind, it's really hard to picture how exactly Vocaloid has changed the music industry in the 2010s, for better or worse. I think part of why it's so hard to actually picture this is because during that sort of period in 2014, Vocaloids were over-dramatized as this sort of robot takeover of the entire music industry. Like, they aren't, and they never will. This isn't something like the Avengers Age of Ultra high-pitched Len Kagami screaming his throat out, or the Terminator Hatsune Miku annihilates Arnold Schwarzenegger. Rather, I think Vocaloid has made music a more accessible medium for creation and production for a lot of people. I mean, without Vocaloids, who would have heard of these artists like Deco27, 40MP, Mitchie M, Supercell? Hey, there's a lot of people out there. They sort of revolutionized the industry in a way, where now more people know about the availability of this tool and the weird, wacky, small but dedicated community around it. In my opinion, this is very similar to the GameStop incident that happened earlier in 2021, where through the massive onslaught of stocks being bought by Redditors, a lot of people, including me, learned about stocks. Before this, I had no idea what was there about stocks or cryptocurrency. I had basically the knowledge of a toddler. The impact that Vocaloid had on the industry was how we got popular EDM artists like Paul Robinson and Zed using Vocaloids in their songs and albums as a backing tool to enrich certain sections, which in a beautiful way is similar to what the intended purpose of Vocaloids were upon initial release. In the end of the day, although Vocaloids are a tool that people can use to add to their music production, it is also a gateway, a symbol for people who need it as a resource to create music, giving them a voice that they otherwise cannot find on their own. And in a way, there's something really beautiful about that. So thank you to Vocaloid for inspiring countless people to take that first step. Thank you for watching.